country. Let's have a look at another one, which in some ways is even more dangerous, and we're back onto the subject of prevent. Now, I want to say that I've just done a No Smoke Without Fire with Debbie Evans, looking into prevent in great detail as a result of some excellent research that she's carried out. But today, for our audience for the news, I wanted to just focus people in on what's happening under the surface. And this is particularly relevant as David Cameron comes back on the full political scene. So this was an article that we published back in 2015, Prevent, Duty Guidance for England and Wales, but we labelled it Britain a Stasi state. And what were we talking about? Well, this was the meat of it, that a school in Cornwall, a parent was surprised to find that the Prevent team got involved as a result of some things happening with children in that school. But in the government's own words, Prevent is statutory guidance, which makes clear that schools and childcare providers are expected to assess the risk of children being drawn into terrorism, including support for extremist ideas that are part of terrorist ideology. Now, remember, in this article, we're talking about very small children, but this is David Cameron's agenda. It's his prevent policy. Just remember that, as this man is now let loose on the international scene. So alongside the prevent spying and reporting system, the Conservative government set up channel duty guidance. It channels people into a multi-agency monitoring and, quote, detainment system, which mirrors MAPA, the multi-agency public protection arrangements. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to find out, because this is really serious stuff. And then it tells us that Channel and MAPA are going to share secret committee meetings behind closed doors, secret committees meeting behind closed doors to assess, judge, and convict individuals of crimes for which there are no clearly defined definitions. Now, this is me speaking in the article, but what I'm saying is absolutely correct, because these people are unaccountable. And the Stasi state is mentioned at the bottom of the UK column article. Well, surprise it to be that in 2015, we also had organisations such as Amnesty International warning about what was coming. Their headline, Lessons from the Stasi, a cautionary tale on mass surveillance. And this is a picture on screen of the old Stasi headquarters in East Germany. And if we bring in a bit of that, it's Amnesty International's article said, while the Stasi archive is overwhelming, today's spies can gather far more information with a fraction of the effort. So let's follow this through. Here's the man we should be watching. We should be watching, and there, back in 2015, the 4 pillars of David Cameron's counter-extremism strategy. This is the data from the government on the fact sheet, Prevent and Channel, brought up to date relatively at 2021. So I'm going to invite our viewers and listeners to research that for themselves. But if we just bring this in simply, Prevent addresses the personal and social factors which make people more receptive to radicalisation. We've got Channel, which is the referral process. And note, it says the Channel panel is chaired by the local authority and can include a variety of partners such as the police, children's services, social services, education professionals, and mental health care professionals. They can all report on any individual in this country without the individual being aware. And that data can be freely shared with the multi-agency public protection arrangements, which is supposed to protect against violent and sexual offenders. But we've already seen many examples when it goes outside those boundaries. And of course, in the sidelines, we've got GCHQ spying on people in the UK, 77 Brigade from the British Army. And as a result of Conservative Francis Maud's efforts, we have data being shared with the Israeli security unit 8200. So think about the network which Ben has just described. Now overlain on that, we've got this spying network, which, as we've said, puts Stasis to shame. We're going to show you a little video clip. This gentleman is a an official who had a bad experience with counter-terrorism police. The label in this Telegraph video is "Former official claims police used Mogg selfie as evidence of, quote, far-right extremism." So if you're a veteran listening into us today, you should understand that your key label as a veteran is far-right. But I'm going to say to our audience, this man is very quietly spoken. The clip is 3 minutes. Please stay focused and listen to what he says.
What do you claim, Andrew, that the police did wrong against you in their actions?
Well, I mean, Stephen, this summer, the Independent Office for Police Conduct actually upheld my review against the police. And for me, that's vindication. And as a part of that process, I had to first complain to the Metropolitan Police, and they should have actually had my complaints investigated by the Department for Professional Standards in a formal investigation, but they absurdly gave it to the very local unit I was complaining about, and naturally they conducted internal whitewash, cleared themselves, and then put out a press release last summer. I'm also autistic, and I made a disability discrimination claim against them, and they ignored that. But I mean, Stephen, the IOPC report, it's quite long. It's very healing for me to read it because, you know, everywhere the Independent Office of Police Conduct's ruling against me. But, you know, some of the complaints I made, which the IOPC takes the police for, you know, to task over, is the ignoring. I made over 50 complaints, and they only investigated 3 minor ones, and then ignored the rest. Officers at the highest level, including Cressida Dick, should be investigated. The leaks of such documents are normally addressed on work premises by civil servants. The involvement of the counterterrorism police and the whole approach to the arrest was unprecedented and not proportionate. Neil Boss, the assistant commissioner, threatened to arrest and prosecute journalists. I mean, the list is quite endless, and the police just ignored all that and cleared themselves. And I'll just finish with this, Stephen. The police, because we'd be here all day going over that very brilliant report the IOPC gave me, but the police told my witnesses to go away and not contact them. They stated in writing that they were not going to consider any of my evidence, but only evidence of the counterterrorism police and my enemies in the civil service. And this really is Soviet-style behavior. And so I'm very pleased with the decision by the IOPC, and the report mentions that the police did a risk assessment the day before they raided my home with 14 fully armed counterterrorism police officers who broke down the front door and trashed my flat and took me from my post-cancer surgery sickbed to Southwark Police Station. And the risk assessment that I got released to me, not from the police, but because the police have refused me all documents, but I got released from the Crown Prosecution Service. It says, the subject, you know, has no firearms, no knives, no weapons, drugs, infectious persons, infectious articles, hazardous substances, dangerous animals, you know, unsafe structure, no criminal record. And that was made the day before they raided my home. So why on earth did they need to raid my home with 14 counterterrorism police officers?
So really, really important things coming to light there as he analyses a system, but essentially surveillance and counter-terrorism police out of control in order to raid a person's home with 14 police. This is the state of UK in 2023. Now, if we looked at some of the social media comments under the video, they were particularly interesting because we got people saying, this man is educated, articulate, and knows his rights. Common purpose police state legacy of Blair. Well, that is actually true, but actually we've got to remember the Tories with David Cameron fully involved. And then a particularly astute comment, term far right is anything right of Gramsci these days. So people clearly picking up on the significance of this. But then let's think about this aspect. Again, this is back in 2017, where we were showing that GCHQ was going to run residential courses for children and teenagers to draw them into its spying system. And this is the article. We chose Gloucestershire Live, but a newly set up specialist cybersecurity arm running residential courses for 2,500 teenagers. And of course, they want what they call the brightest and best in order to bring them in and groom them into the GCHQ way of thinking. This is not fantasy. This is reality in UK, and all of this is underway. I'm just going to play this very quickly and talk over. People can freeze the screen. But the key thing is, of course, spying is very exciting for children. Children will be brought in and effectively groomed into the GCHQ way of thinking, which is that it's right to spy on the population as a whole. And don't forget that GCHQ is a common purpose trained organisation. That is the pernicious charity that David Cameron was himself involved with. And just to put a little bit of final gloss on this, this was a report that we made in 2012, where the Mirror and other papers were reporting that David Cameron had lost Steve Hilton, his big society guru. And as we've said on many occasions, the key thing is that big society was David Cameron's agenda to completely change society in UK. And that big change policy is being put into force as we speak. It has not gone away in any shape or form. And of course, the other thing we highlighted was that this was all linked into the big corporations. And we pointed out relations between Hilton and Rachel Whetstone, the high-powered communications chief of Google, and godparents to David Cameron's eldest son. And I'll just finish on this for Ben, because this is back in 2014, and we've got an article that we showed on the news. Former Nesta trustee says it was, quote, forced, or says they were forced to fund big society network projects. So all of this can be very tightly linked together, and it's all being progressed under the surface, unbeknown to the majority of the wider population in UK.
Okay, if you like what the UK Column does, you would like to support us, please head over to community.ukcolumn.org. Your membership there, very much appreciated if you would consider joining us. You could pick something up at the UK Column shop, including the MHRA t-shirt and maybe a membership voucher for a Christmas gift for somebody perhaps. But do share material you find on the various platforms, especially ukcolumn.org and ukcolumnextracts.co.uk. Just want to give a reminder that on Sunday, the 3rd of December, we are hosting on behalf of International Centre for 9/11 Justice, the first annual David Ray Griffin lecture. And this is really going to be looking at the events which have taken place and driven by 9/11, everything that we've seen geopolitically since then. So do watch that if you possibly can, and share this if you could, please. And also want to highlight that Andrew Bridgen is going to be bringing a number of doctors into Parliament on the Monday, the 4th of December, for democracy, truth and freedom, to give evidence. And he is asking for everybody to lobby their MP to attend this historic meeting to hear expert testimony on the pandemic and its consequences. So there's a template letter and information available at saveoursovereignty.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. Well, let's just move on quickly. A couple of emails. This one was sent in to me. It was about the Saturday Cenotaph event. And Peter says, I was at the Cenotaph on Sunday. The crowds were there to protect the ceremony and monument because they were either unaware or distrustful of the police willingness or ability to do it. Events in Rochdale hadn't helped. It's important to recognise that these concerns were shared by many veterans. Once in London, it was realised the police were out in force. The desire to change to wanting to observe the ceremony, and being unable to do this angered them, hence the attempts to force their way in. However, once the silence and ceremony commenced, they were respectful and quiet. I cannot comment with any authority on events after that. There is no doubt some people came looking for a fight, but that's no different to almost any large gathering. I hope you can broadcast this. Well, we have, Peter, and we're pleased to do so. And this one I'll summarise really, but I've said a couple of times that if you're more mature, you've got to hold some responsibility for the state of the country, because we voted in the corrupt politicians that are in power and have been over many years. But the person said, I feel you're putting yourself down unnecessarily. The problem's been going on longer than my or your lifespan. Power has been held in the hands of a few for thousands of years. And even our supposed great democracy was founded by the barons seeking to take some power from the crown for their own benefit. The only criticism I feel you and I should accept is that it took us so long to recognise the problem. So I felt that Anthony sent in a very heartfelt email. I take all the points and people can freeze that and have a look. And then this one was really just giving us a heads up of government ads in the Daily Mail. And what was the subject? Well, the subject is, are you winter ready? Now's the time to book your flu and COVID vaccinations. A big advert from the government, big money for the Daily Mail, of course. But if you look at who's being targeted for the free jabs, they're all people that our data would suggest could be highly at risk for adverse effects from the jabs.
Yes.
And last one here, get appy. So they're encouraging people to get this free NHS app as a simple and secure way to access services. But as Debbie has pointed out, that this is a key part of control of you via the NHS system.